Welcome to the Emisarios Unidos de Luz channel. If you enjoy this near-death experience story, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Now let's start with the story. I fell unconscious in the hospital when my NDE began. I thought that I had awoken from my unconscious state, but my body remained lying in a supine position on the hospital bed as I sat upright. I decided to move away from my body, and as I walked away from the hospital bed, I experienced a strange sensation that felt as though I was passing through a warm wall of gel. I remember looking back to see my body on the bed, yet I remained unconcerned. Then it seemed as if I had traveled back in time, as the room suddenly took on a very rudimentary and dated appearance, and as the furnishings of the room metamorphosed to those reminiscent of the 1940s Art Deco style. It was then that I noticed a man who appeared to be about 60 years old, clothed in a hospital gown, standing before me. Then suddenly the world went black, and I found myself immersed in utter darkness. I was in an expanse or void of undefinable immensity, and yet that darkness seemed confining and oppressive to me. Alone in the darkness, a childhood memory of being teased in the schoolyard for not being baptized came to mind. I wondered about the limits of God's mercy and whether He would forgive me for not being baptized when a door suddenly appeared in the darkness. The door was somewhat far from where I stood, but when I thought about moving towards it, the door suddenly appeared directly in front of me. As I gripped the doorknob to open it, I remember how unremarkable it felt to me at the time to be entering through the front door of what I recognized as the front door of my childhood home. Unlike my childhood home, however, I opened the front door to a starkly white room, and the strangest room insofar as there was nothing apparent that separated the floor from the walls in the room. Even stranger was the most beautiful expanse of sky that my eyes were blessed to behold as I looked towards the ceiling. With its bright fluffy clouds, it was the most beautiful sky I had ever seen, not unlike those observable on Earth, yet the sky I beheld as I looked skyward was brighter and the colors more striking and vivid. In fact, that immense and breathtakingly gorgeous sky was indeed the most beautiful sky I had ever seen. Interestingly, the ceiling was edged with crown molding decorated with a repeated pattern of scrolls and leaves. As my eyes marveled at the beauty of the molding, I saw that the ceiling was supported by an enormous carved column. It was then that an angel with a human-like visage appeared before me, and it was in that moment of his appearance that I realized that I had died and gone to heaven. The angel, who wore jeans and a flannel shirt, dressed in a very ordinary and human way, yet his blonde hair and his rugged good looks were very appealing to me, reminding me of someone I attended school with. As I regarded him, the angel asked me telepathically if I wanted to stay in heaven or if I wanted to return to earth, yet I could feel from the calm that he emanated that he didn't expect that I would make a hurried response. I thought about how my death would irrecoverably damage my mother's heart and soul, and I wondered too if I would miss my mother if I were to remain in heaven. As I weighed the pros and cons, a small, human-like female angel dressed in a yellow dress appeared before me. "You don't have to worry, your relationship with your mother will change later," the angel reassured me. I had a contentious relationship with my mother at that time in my life, but with the angel's calming reassurance and her calming presence, I abandoned all concern of my mother's appraisal of me, and of all concern for all that was happening at that very moment. In that state of total acceptance, I was calmer than I had ever been in the entirety of my human life. As I weighed whether to stay in the afterlife or return to Earth, I had the uncanny sensation of being two people at once. There was the young and immature self that I was all too familiar with, and an older and wiser version of myself as a presence vying for sovereignty against the younger version of myself. It was indeed the older version of myself to whom the final decision to stay or return lay, and while one of the angels railed against my decision to return to Earth, my older and wiser self countered with reasons to return. "I still have my son to raise," my older self asserted, knowing that raising my son was part of my life purpose, albeit the life purpose of a much older me, since I was then only 17 years old at the time of my NDE. "Your life will always be a struggle," the male angel asserted in response to my older self's reasons to return, and when he communicated as much, I wondered about his meaning and in what sense my future would be a struggle. I knew, however, when he communicated that the struggle he was referring to had nothing to do with the usual survival challenges, but rather the struggle to maintain emotional buoyancy after experiencing heartbreak. "Some choices can cost you your soul," the angel warned. As I pondered the meaning of his perplexing words, I began to view a stream of images of myself and others in military uniform fighting in a battle in what appeared to be some kind of urban war. I saw images of myself and others running to a safe position while the sound of gunfire rang in the air. Then the stream of images suddenly came to an end. I won't show you more, lest what I reveal to you have too great an impact on your destiny and your free will, the female angel stated. Suddenly, a woman from whom great love, compassion, gentleness, and wisdom emanated, appeared before us. Even in her silence I could feel the great love, sweetness, and concern she felt for me, that ancient being of whom I felt I had known for eons and even before the world was formed. I have a lot of work to do, the older me stated, while the younger me wondered as to the nature of the work that awaited me. Suddenly, I could feel myself falling at a disconcerting speed before forcefully reuniting with my body. I was once again in my body, and as I lay in a hospital bed, my father, who appeared very concerned and even scared, restrained my flailing limbs. "Welcome back," the attending nurse said as she smiled. "He'll be okay," she reassured when she noticed my concern about my father's worried expression and his pallid complexion. "Since the NDE, I feel much more at peace in my life and within my heart, and I no longer feel the anger and the hurt that I used to feel. I never shared my NDE with my fiancé, as I was certain that he would never have believed me. My fiancé was murdered in 1990, and I experienced the most profound heartbreak as a result of his untimely death. Some choices can cost you your soul," I remembered the male angel saying, and his words would echo in my thoughts during that time of profound sadness and despair, during my dark night of the soul. I did eventually have children, and my first child was a boy, just as the older version of myself said I was destined to have. My relationship with my mother did indeed improve, and when I gave an account of my NDE to her, she explained to me that the work that the older version of myself was referring to during the NDE actually referred to spiritual work. As for those scenes of war that I was shown during my NDE, I can only conclude that that part of the story has yet to unfold.